Hello there. Very good evening and welcome to Let's Talk Politics. I'm your host, Eddie Lane. And of course, as we always say, this program is dedicated to highlighting the progress and development taking place under the People's Progressive Party Civic Administration. But time and again, we have to use the opportunity to respond to the many lies, misinformation, and deliberate attempts to stir up unnecessary controversy in our country by the opposition. I have with me this evening the Honorable Dr. Ashni Singh, a Senior Minister in the Office of the President with responsibility for finance. Minister, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much, Eddie. It's always a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
I want us to get straight into tonight's program. And I guess a lot of persons may have read what I want to describe, that heap load of garbage that came from Winston Jordan. Winston Jordan has been, out of the spotlight for quite some while. And, particularly with the track record that he had as Minister of Finance, I think he's attempting to reinvent himself now, Minister, and is making up things as he go along, which is nothing new, nothing surprising for me, for Jordan or for anybody from the opposition when they were in government. This is the same man who thought the 18 million US bonus was a gift. So if we start from there and we focus on what he wrote about the government's loan scheme or line of credit that has been negotiated or being discussed with the Chinese government. Minister, I'm going to give you the chance to put this into context because clearly Jordan his only aim is to stir up trouble because what he would have mentioned there are completely falsehoods.
Well, thank you very much again, Eddie. Like I said, it's a great pleasure to be on the program. It always is, and thanks for inviting me. I want to begin in the interest of full disclosure. I want to begin by saying that I have known Winston Jordan for many, many years. Certainly more than 20 years. Probably more than 25 years. Going back to a time when we were colleagues in the civil service. There was, in fact, a time when I was Deputy Auditor General and he was Budget Director. So I've known him for a long time. And I would also say, in the interest of full disclosure, that for most of that time, I have considered him to be a professional colleague and a friend. And I want to say that publicly. I want to say that publicly. In fact, I would say that at least up to May 2015, I would have considered him a colleague and a friend. Indeed, in May 2015, when the APNU AFC government was elected to office, even before his announcement was publicly made, the announcement of his appointment as minister was publicly made, I called him and I congratulated him. I invited him to the ministry once his appointment was announced, and I introduced him to the senior leadership of the ministry, and I handed the ministry over to him. And like I said, up until that time, I would unhesitatingly have described Winston Jordan as my friend. I will admit that the fact that he sat in the cabinet of 2015 to 2020, silently apparently, during the various atrocities that were committed by that cabinet, political and economic atrocities that were committed by that cabinet, I have to wonder whether the Winston Jordan who I knew was, or who I thought I knew was really who he was. I often, between 2015 and 2020, as I watched him sit, whether silently or otherwise, in a cabinet, like I said, displaying complicity with what I can only describe as the atrocities committed by that cabinet, I really did wonder whether this was the same person who I thought I had known. So fast forward to the current time, and I have watched the various pronouncements being made, not wanting to descend into a ball by ball response to each, for obvious reasons. And so I, for the greater part, watched, these ever so often is various pronouncements, public pronouncements being made. And reluctant though I might be to respond to these, I feel that I have an obligation to respond to them and a moral responsibility to respond to them, because there is a very clear pattern of behavior that is emerging. And I want to go back in time to describe that pattern of behavior and provide a few examples. But perhaps let me start with the most recent events. I saw he made a great hullabaloo about a letter being written by a senior technical official in this ministry on the matter of mobilizing resources, donor resources, or development partner resources to finance some projects. Now, I will say this definitively. Some might disagree with me. I know that Winston Jordan knows that this is absolutely normal. I know that he knows that. And I know that he knows since time immemorial that technical staff write letters of this nature all the time. They did so during his ministerial tenure. And prior to that, they did so when he was a civil servant for many, many years. And some may say that he must have been, some may question his competence, some may question his familiarity with these issues. I would not do so. I feel confident in saying that he knows that this is normal. And in fact, I believe the Ministry of Finance press release yesterday provided a number of examples of identical letters that were written, or very similar letters that were written during his ministerial tenure by the same official, mobilizing resources, indicating that the government was seeking loans or seeking or applying for loans for financing various projects. I believe that Winston Jordan, I'm confident that he knows that this is normal. So on the premise that he must have known that this is normal, you have to ask yourself, why would he go out there and insinuate that there is something wrong about this letter being written by a senior technical official? Why would he, knowing that this is normal, knowing that there's nothing inappropriate, illegal, or irregular about it, why would he go out and seek to plant in people's minds a doubt about the legitimacy and validity of this action? Why would he do so? And is this an isolated instance? Is it an isolated instance? Let's go back. Let's go back a little bit. You would recall the infamous signing bonus of 18 million. And you would recall Winston Jordan being approached on the matter of the signing bonus and saying publicly, there is no signing bonus with ExxonMobil. In fact, he's quoted in the I believe it's Kaichor News of November 23rd, 2017. He's quoted as saying, no signing bonus with ExxonMobil. I don't know if you can see it there. I don't know if it can be read. No signing bonus with ExxonMobil, says Finance Minister, November 13th, 2017. November 13th, 2017, he says he cannot confirm receipt. He said he will check. Cannot confirm receipt, he will check. Right? There you go. He would subsequently, I believe he was on tape saying Guyana that such a bonus was neither requested nor received. I believe there's some videotape circulating of him saying that no such bonus was requested nor received. Bear in mind that these statements are being made in November 2017. November 2017. Mind you, in September 2016, his ministry wrote the central bank. This is 1 year prior to him saying there is no such bonus. 1 year before that, his ministry wrote the central bank, and the caption of the letter is signing bonus granted by ExxonMobil, request to open bank account. The letter is here and the date is here. Signing bonus. You can see the date at the top there. Can you read it? So in September 2016,
yes, you are. You're seeing it.
In September 2016, his ministry writes to the central bank to open a secret bank account. Mind you, the law requires the signing bonus to go to the consolidated fund. The law requires this. In 2016, the law required the signing bonus and any other government revenue to go into the consolidated fund. In September 2016, his ministry wrote requesting the opening of a special bank account for a signing bonus, September 20th, 2016. In November 23rd, 2017, he says no signing bonus. Now, I will leave your viewers to form their own conclusion. Fast forward, when eventually irrefutable evidence was provided to the public that there was a signing bonus and that there was a secret bank account, and that these funds had been diverted from the consolidated fund to the secret bank account, Winston Jordan appears again. In fact, I shouldn't go so far. In fact, at some point in time, he was interviewed. Well, I think he said, fast forward a little bit sometime, when, like I said, when the irrefutable evidence became publicly available, he then claimed that he didn't know who negotiated it. He said, I don't know who negotiated it. I don't know anything about it. I don't know how they arrived at 18 million. To be honest with you, I thought it was a gift. You would recall that interview.
This is on a Kaicho News program. I remember that vividly.
That's correct. He thought it was a
publicly
gift. But he didn't know who negotiated it. But what is interesting is that in August 2021, August 18, 2021, apparently he now recalls who had negotiated it. And he now says, coalition was misled by Exxon negotiator. He said on video that he doesn't know. He said on video that he doesn't know who the negotiator was. But he comes back now on August 18, 2021, and he says, coalition was misled by Exxon negotiator. Coalition was misled by Exxon. Apparently, he now remembers who the negotiator was. But he now says the negotiator misled ExxonMobil. Now, you have here, first of all, an illegal act, the diversion of 80 million. You have a matter of such great significance being the subject of correspondence by his ministry. And I refuse to imagine that a finance secretary, the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Finance, will write the central bank requesting the opening of a bank account to receive a signing bonus from ExxonMobil, and he will claim that he didn't know it. Now, some may say that he was sleepwalking, some may say that he was dereliction of duty, he didn't know what was going on. I don't want to say that. I frankly speaking, I refuse to believe that. I refuse to believe that. I cannot imagine that he was not aware. I cannot imagine that he was not aware. And so you have to ask yourself, why would he, first of all, disclaim knowledge of this signing bonus and say that it does not exist? Secondly, say that he didn't know the nature of it and he didn't know who negotiated it. And then thirdly, come back and say, well, he knows who negotiated it, but he doesn't want to say who negotiated it, but the negotiator misled them. Here again, Eddie, I will leave your viewers to judge for themselves. But if we go further back, your viewers may recall that in June 2015, 1 month after Winston Jordan assumed office, he stood up in Parliament and he was regaling the Parliament with debt numbers and was quoting all sorts of debt numbers and talking about the debt. And I saw a newspaper story reporting this, mind you, this was their first month. They assumed office in May. This was June or July. I think it was the 26th of June. I saw a newspaper report with a debt number that I knew had to be wrong. And I know that Winston follows these things, or I have always assumed that he did. So I knew that the debt number was wrong, and I knew that he had to know that the debt number was wrong, that he stood up and quoted. I knew that he had to know. So I waited a day, 2 days for him to correct the number. I figured that even if he made a mistake in Parliament, you know, he would read the headline next and say, hang on a second, I know this thing is wrong. Let me issue a clarification or issue a release, because I knew he had to know the number is wrong. So I waited. He didn't issue a correction. So I wrote a small letter to the newspapers pointing this out. Simply saying, look, this number looks very strange to me. Can you provide the details? And you know, Eddie, at the next sitting in Parliament, he stood up and he had to apologize to the House for attempting to mislead the House and for attempting to mislead the nation. Now, I mention these examples really to point out to you that what seems to be emerging in my mind is a clear pattern of behavior. He throws these things out. In my mind, some may say he's grossly incompetent and he doesn't know what he's talking about. I will not say that. In my mind, he understands these issues. But he deliberately throws these things out, knowing fully well that they're not accurate. Hoping perhaps either that nobody will answer him or correct him, or hoping perhaps that there are enough people out there who will believe what he says and run with it. And even if he's corrected, there'll be enough, his misinformation would already have gained enough traction. And there will be enough people running with the misinformation. And so you have to ask yourself, what is the either? I mean, you know, there are multiple examples. There are lots of examples. I can go back and give you. There are lots
I wanted to take you to a specific example, Minister. We're talking about example. I'm looking at a letter dated June 26, 2015, captioned, application for concessional loan to finance the construction of the East Coast 4-lane highway, Better Hope to Belfield. The letter was to the Chinese ambassador, and it is signed by Tarachan Balgobin, the director, project cycle management division. This in June 2015, Winston Jordan was just about a month in office. So this is another example, and he is saying that technical officers don't sign. But probably one of his very first act of seeking a loan, that letter was signed by a technical officer.
And there, Eddie, there are many, many, many more examples. So it's either one of two things. He didn't have a clue what was going on, or he was fully well aware, but he will deliberately come now to create a misleading impression, to suggest something is wrong, something is amiss. You have to, I mean, it's one of the two. It's either he did not have a clue what was going on and he didn't have a clue what was happening in his own ministry, either that, or he was fully aware, he knows fully well that this is perfectly normal, but he will still put it out there and try to create this impression that there's something wrong with it. It's one or the other. It's the same with the signing bonus. It's the same with the signing bonus. Either he did not have a clue what was happening and his ministry was busy creating secret accounts and stashing away signing bonuses here, left, right, and center. Either he didn't have a clue, or he knew and still stood up, watched the nation and said there's no such signing bonus. And then the pieces start to fit together. Recall, of course, he likes to describe himself as a professional. You know, somehow he feels that like when he says he's a professional, like he feels that puts him like a cut above other people. You know, he likes to puff up his chest and say he's a professional. You know, you have to ask yourself, you know, he sat in a parliament that watched the nation in their faces, full in their faces, and said 33 is not greater than 32. This professional that he is, right? So
who should have been good with numbers, by the way.
Well, you know, I don't want to. Like I said, it's very unfortunate, to be frank with you. I've tried to avoid. I don't want to get into a daily exchange with, frankly speaking, anybody, because I have real work to do. And I've sat back silently and I've watched this thing coming day after day, week after week, constantly, replete with misrepresentations. To be frank, as you will notice, I've been completely silent on these issues, or largely silent, right? I've been largely silent. Occasionally in the parliament and so on, I will allude to them, right? But frankly speaking, it's, you know, you can't continue every day to misrepresent facts and mislead the nation.
But Doc, for 5 years, I mean, I don't think any single Guyanese should be surprised, because I think that is exactly what these guys did while they were in power for 5 years. They deliberately and consistently misrepresented facts. When they took office, they claimed that the treasury was empty, but they started a spending splurge.
Eddie,
they claimed all sorts of things.
You're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. What you're seeing, in fact, is a pattern of behavior that is not only being displayed by Winston Jordan, it's displayed by everybody else in the entire APNU government, now opposition. It is a pattern of behavior. One man stood up and said he doesn't wear gold jewelry. And the next day, the country was bombarded with pictures of him wearing all manner of jewelry. Imagine a person standing up and watching the nation and said, I don't wear jewelry. What are y'all telling me about bracelet? I don't wear any jewelry. And the next day, people were able to produce dozens of pictures of him wearing jewelry. I mean, come on, man. Come on. So you're speaking about, you know, Winston is not an isolated instance, an isolated example. You're speaking about a chronic pattern of behavior throughout the APNU AFC. He's displaying the same behavior as the rest of them, no different.
Recall what the one man said. One man went to his staff and announced to them that, you know, the numbers didn't look good for us, and, you know, thanked them for working with him for 5 years. And when it was exposed, the man went on not just local television, he went all the way to Trinidad on a television station to say he was telling the staff thanks because he was preparing to move on to the Prime Minister's office. So you're right, it's across the board. We see it every single day. We see it every single day. Even now in the parliament, we hear these guys make all sorts of claims that can be easily debunked by a click of a button on a computer.
Eddie, look, I mean, like I said, I don't really, we have real work to do. So I would much prefer not to have to spend time, engaging in this. But I mean, let us rewind a little bit. A no confidence motion was moved by the People's Progressive Party in Parliament in 2018. You would recall that. Now, you know that logically, and your viewers know logically, that from the time the no confidence motion would have been moved, all of the legal advisors in the then government or to the then government would have studied the Constitution, they would have studied all of the laws, they would have studied everything concerning no confidence motions, etc. You know that they would have read the Constitution back and forth. You know that. So by the time they got into Parliament to debate this no confidence motion, they would already have familiarized themselves with the laws governing no confidence motions, passage of such motions in Parliament, etc. They sat down in Parliament that night and they lost that motion. I don't know if you recall, but when they lost that motion, they went downstairs and did a press conference. And they said in that press conference, they're very disappointed by the result, but they will respect the results of the no confidence motion. You recall that? They went downstairs.
The then Prime Minister was at the head table.
That's correct. The then Prime Minister went downstairs. Mind you, for months, they've been studying this no confidence motion and the laws surrounding it. They've been studying 32, 33, they're counting from 1 to 32, 1 to 33. They must have. Any party would have done that. So after months of cogitation and reflection and analysis and study of the laws surrounding no confidence motion, of the laws surrounding parliamentary majority, they went to Parliament. They sat down, the vote was taken, they lost the vote, and they went downstairs armed with the knowledge that they had, must have studied this matter for several months. They went downstairs and said, we respect the results of this motion, disappointed though we might be. Lo and behold, a few days later, they changed their minds. I really don't like to hark back unnecessarily to these things, but we have to hark back to them. We used to say we don't want to hark back to pre-1992 and the days of the dictatorship. You remember we used to say, man, that is history, and we don't want to go back in history. And then lo and behold, history repeated itself in 2020. Correct. with an attempt to impose a dictatorship in Guyana. And so, like I said, this is a pattern of behavior across the entire APNU AFC that permeated every single thing that they did while they were in government, and that continues to permeate everything that they say or do now that they're in opposition. Either gross incompetence and or barefaced dishonesty.
I think it's a combination of both. Because we saw the results. If you take Jordan, for example, since we are talking about him, we saw what happened to this country and the economy, and the manner in which the economy was going, and how they were devising fiscal policies. So I think it's a combination of both. I know we're almost out of time, Doc, so I'm going to give you maybe a minute or two to wrap this up, because I know you're a person, you don't like to this like you rightly said, this confrontation and back and forth. You prefer to focus on how you can make a contribution to really improve the lives of the citizens of this country, which you're elected to do, by the way. So I'm going to give you a chance to wrap up by maybe in a minute or two.
No, thanks a lot, Eddie. Again, like I said, I appreciate the opportunity that you've given me to bring some clarity to these issues. Like I said, I feel we have a serious responsibility to clarify these issues and bring the facts to the attention of the people. But this is unnecessary. There must be some degree. They campaigned on, what did they say? Honesty, decency, and something. Integrity. What was the campaign? There were lots of green banners all over saying
honesty, decency, and integrity.
Yeah, come on, man. Honest, where's this honesty, decency, and integrity that they like to?
They were hoping to get it in the future, so they campaigned on it. They had it wasn't there.
And deliberately misrepresenting facts, distorting things inaccurately just to create some misleading impression, and hoping that nobody will come out and correct you. Come on. So like I said, Eddie, it's most regrettable. I appreciate it. It's most regrettable that we have to be engaging in this. Like I said, I would much prefer to spend my time doing serious, real work. But when this behavior is going to persist, and the constant repetition of inaccuracies, even if he said something by mistake, he must have had time to reflect a little bit and think about it and say, well, hang on a second, I should correct myself next time. Well, come back out and keep repeating the same thing, knowing that it is not true, knowing that it is wrong. The viewers, like I said, the facts are there. I've given some examples. The facts are there. I'm perfectly happy for your viewers to form their own conclusion. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I will say that this government, under the leadership of President Irfan Ali, has the very important task of continuing to work to improve the lives of each and every single Guyanese person, and we will continue to do that work in earnest. Meanwhile, ever so often, regrettably, we're going to have to take a moment, pause for a moment on that work, and come and clarify and correct this kind of dishonesty that is being peddled by the AP and UAFC. But we would like to get back swiftly to the task of doing serious work to build this country and to improve the lives of every single Guyanese person. That's what's important to us.
Doc, I got to bring you back very soon, but not to talk about this, but to really discuss where our country is going economically. I think the future is very, very exciting. I think a lot of Guyanese, all Guyanese are looking forward to that. So we got to come back sometime and maybe have some discussions on the path we're on and where we're going, maybe in the next couple of years. But until then, I want to say thanks for being here. To our viewers and listeners, we want to say thanks for being part of the program. We're going to be back with you on Thursday evening. Until then, we encourage you to take your vaccines and be safe. Have a good rest of the evening. Doc,
thank you very much, Eddie. Thank you very much, Eddie, and thank you very much to your viewers as well.
It's a pleasure.